Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on SuperSport. For today's review of the South African round 12 of the United Rugby Championship, and maybe the most important thing, the final game in what was the block of South African derbies that we have seen in the past sort of 4 weeks, 4 South African derby weekends in a row, which was not ideal. It's not what the supporters want. However, it is what the situation dictated, And probably the most exciting thing about finishing this weekend is that the next time you're going to see these sides in action in the URC, it will be against URC, European opposition, which is what the entire point of this competition is. So what I will say, a lot of people sitting there saying, we're so bored of seeing the same thing. And I understand that because, I've been watching the same thing that you've been watching. But you've got to look at it all in context. And the reality is that the situation and the current world at the moment dictated the fact that was the only way that these games are going to go, the competition was going to go ahead. So the final weekend of Derby weekend saw a big win for Stormers and saw a very important win for the Sharks as the South African side start to move into the top half of the table. And also a massive step back for the Lions and a frustrating game for the Bulls. Before we look at the results, talk about the performances, talk about what is to come, as well as look at the log, please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. So in terms of what we saw this weekend, these are the results. Now, first of all, the Stormers completely outplayed the Lions, 32 points to 10, a bonus point victory against the men from Johannesburg in their own backyard. Almost the exact opposite result of what we saw in this fixture down in Cape Town last year. Now, what I will say is that I think the Stormers are starting to find their best backline and their best sort of 23. I think that they lose forward, stuff like that. I think there's still a bit of arguments to who should be in there. But the Stormers are moving towards finding what is their strongest team, which I think is a very promising, very exciting thing, because I think they've got so much talent in that union. They just need to find the best players and best way to sort of disperse and put it on a field. And I think that, we saw Dane Williams at inside centre. I thought that him, Manie Liebach, Warwick Gelant, when Herschel Yankee starts as well, there's so much license and so much X factor for them to play around and to move around that I think it's going to be very exciting combinations. What's going to be interesting, though, is how sort of defensively where they're going to be able to sort of slot in and have a nice system. But I didn't think they had to work hard enough to get this result as they probably should have. And I think that the Lions took massive 2 steps. And 2 weeks ago, I said I hadn't seen the Lions played so badly. This was almost sort of a bit like that. And I think the biggest frustration, especially as a Lions fan, is I cannot firmly say that I believe the best 23 players in the union were on the field at the time. And I understand there's injuries, but I'm just saying, I don't think of the fit 23 players that we saw on Saturday, they're not the best out of the fittest players, or the players who are available, for example, in the union. And if you're not going to put your best side on the field, why are we in this competition? Now I think on the back of the Bulls' performance, a couple of players got dropped, got moved around, and they said there was an attitude issue. But if you want to compete and you want to be good at this level, you've got to be playing your best players. Now we are, talks apparently for long talks about Wandisile Simelane and Berger Windau potentially moving overseas. Wandisile Simelane has had very little game time in the URC compared to what he should have had. He didn't start in 3 of the 4 matches in the first opening leg. He then came back, started against the Stormers end of last year, tore the Stormers apart, started against the Bulls, and then got dropped. Started against the Sharks and started against the Bulls, and then got dropped for the last 2 games. And I look at Simelane within the 4 players that actually enjoy watching at the union. I love watching Carly Sari do all his work. I love watching Vincent Tuka. I love watching Wandisile Simelane. And I love watching Jordan Hendrickse. I think those are the 4 players that the Lions have that could be pushing for higher honours in the future. You cannot be putting one of those players on the bench and expecting for it to go well. I don't understand the thinking when the coaching staff sits down and plans 23. What are they thinking? Morning van den Berg came on, for example, and within 30 seconds, the Lions had played. Of him coming on, basically, the Lions went on to play a passage of play with about 10, 11 phases. They gained about 20, 30 meters in their passage of play, and they looked the most deadly they had the entire weekend. He never gets a start. I don't understand it. So the Lions coming sitting in 14, and they deserve to be 14, because I truly believe that the union right now are not making decisions that warrant them to be in this competition. I think they've got the players, and they've got the potential to be in this competition and to compete and be in the top half. I don't think they've got the facilities and the resources to win it, but they've got to be doing better than what they're doing. On the other hand, in the other game, we finally started to see a Sharks side that are starting to look like, the side that we kind of expect to see with all their stars. Still very much below expectations, because a Bull side who went down to 14 men in the 11th minute, the Sharks should put them to the sword. And a big testament to the Bulls, the fact that they managed to hang in, they managed to actually make the Sharks work very hard for that victory, which is a little bit worrying for as a Sharks fan, maybe. But I think that you're starting to see a much better Sharks side. I think it's starting to click. Interesting enough, also, a new announcement of Neil Powell taking over as director of rugby at Sharks as opposed to the defense coach. Interesting to see how that goes. And the Bulls, I mean, they were always up against it. That red card, look, it was 14-on-14 after Grant Williams was carded in the 61st minute, I think it was. But it was always going to be difficult with 14 men. But let's talk about the cards themselves, and I think that Monde Steyn is a red card. I don't understand how there are people trying to argue that it wasn't a red card. You look at the letter of the law, and basically, when there's foul play involved, they start at the top, and they say, right, there's foul play, so we're starting at a red card. Why isn't it a red card? Which, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, that is how they approach things. Now, you look at his challenge, first of all, it was late. So that immediately takes it to it's unnecessary, it could have been avoided and shouldn't have happened. Swinging elbow, strong level of force. That's just a fact. He was going in to make a big tackle, so of course it's a high level of force. The contact was with the neck-head area of Lukhanyo. There was no ducking about Lukhanyo. He was in an upright position. There was plenty of time for Monde Steyn to move. And it's very uncharacteristic of Monde Steyn because he is a player who doesn't genuinely have any. I mean, it might even be the first red card of his career, for all I know. But it's a red card. That's the facts are it's a red card. Now, I'm sitting there arguing with people on Twitter saying, no, he's a nice guy, so they should take it into consideration. It's a red card. You cannot argue. And don't come here with this whole, the game's gone soft. It's a red card. You're not allowed to do that. We are looking at, there are currently lawsuits going around about the concussions that are happening in rugby. It's becoming a huge problem. You then need to remove the unnecessary collision. Of course, rugby is a contact sport. Remove the unnecessary foul play. That was foul play. What I will say about Grant Williams, I think that's on the other end of the spectrum. I think that is what we call a rugby collision. That is what we call not a freak accident, but it is in many ways a freak accident because, he went for a tackle and he was upright. So that was the thing that counted against him. But his shoulder and his arms led and hit the opposite player around here, well below the shoulder line, because he wants to try go for a ball and all tackle. Unfortunately, his head collided with Chris Smith. And that's why you got a red card, because they're saying it's head-on-head collision, and that is usually foul play. And again, you look at that going from red going down. But I think, on a different day, put it this way, a different day, if Grant Williams' head is slightly to the right and Chris Smith's head is, if their head are both slightly to the right, they miss each other. And it becomes a fantastic tackle, and Grant Williams is praised for a brilliant tackle. A Monde Steyn incident, for example, on a different day, there's no other result that could happen. It wasn't an unfortunate thing of timing. It was a late swinging arm that made contact with the head. That was just the facts. So it's interesting, because I think you've got two spectrums. I think you've got an obvious red card and a red card which is a dangerous precedent because accidents can happen. And I think that's the biggest thing we need to understand, that accidents can happen. There was no intent with Grant Williams. He didn't go and try and headbutt Chris Smith. Whereas Monde Steyn, you can't sort of sit there saying he didn't mean to do it because it's exactly what he was trying to do. Look, I'm not saying he sat there going, I'm going to smack Lukhanyo arm across the head. But in his actions, there was no other net result. There was no other result that was possible. So it's an interesting sort of situation. But in terms of what this means in terms of last week, now, first of all, the Stormers have risen up to the top of the South African Shield. But importantly, they're sitting there in 7th. Now, they've still got a game in hand. So the Stormers can go as high as 6th if they were to win that game in hand. They can overtake Ospreys. So the Stormers all of a sudden, which before the tournament, we were probably seeing the saying Stormers and the Sharks, the Lions are going to struggle the most, are actually looking quite good. The Sharks, again, as well, a win for them can take them up to about 7th. So we're starting to see our South African side starting to climb the table. And I think in maybe 3-4 weeks' time, with a couple of right results, we could see them sitting around here. And that's kind of what we wanted to see them. I'm not expecting the South African side to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not even expecting the South African side to maybe necessarily be in the top 4. It is the first time in the competition, but we want to see them around here. We want to see them competing with the big boys in the competition. Now, the frustrating thing is that these two teams should not be down yet. With the way that the Lions currently taking his competition seriously, I think they deserve to be down there. But the Bulls, you've got to sit there thinking the Bulls have got to be higher than, a Benton, a Connacht, even an Ospreys. They need to be around here with the Stormers and the Sharks. So it's a very interesting situation. Meanwhile, the Scottish sides are sitting very pretty at the top here. Obviously, we've got the Irish dominance over here. So it's the Welsh sides really which the South Africans need to almost sort of target. because they are the ones that are up for takers. You know, Dragons, Scarlets, Cardiff, Ospreys are all within reach from at least one South African side. So yeah, but let me know what you thought about the competition or the weekend's fixtures down in the comments below. We now move towards regular sort of, well, not necessarily regular because there still will be somewhere during Six Nations, but the next round of fixtures is going to be the Friday the 4th of March. And what we're going to see there is these teams are back in February. But what we are going to see in 2 weeks' time is, I think it goes back to sort of all the way back down to sort of round 6 here and stuff like that. We are finally going to see, where is it? Here. So 18th of March, suddenly we're going to start seeing these fixtures being played. Bulls taking on Scarlets, Lions versus Munster and stuff like that. So, you know, if we look at the sides, for example, and let's look at the Lions fixtures, the next time they will be in action will be on the where is it? Yeah, Friday the 25th of Feb. So they're then going over to Leinster. So we're starting to get a bit more normality. Unfortunately, again, this is a round 10 clash. So that's where it becomes quite difficult to sort of keep track of exactly what's going on, because the rounds are all sort of mixed and up. But our South African sides will be in action in 2 weeks' time, and they'll be in action over in Europe, which is very exciting. So we're starting to move back towards a normal sort of rounds of the URC. Once these matches have been caught up, then we can start having the normal rounds that we kind of sort of been waiting to see. It's always going to be a very disruptive tournament. Next season, this will not be the case, hopefully. But it is what it is. But let me know what you thought of the weekend. Let me know what you think of the fixtures coming up and what you think of the table in the comments below. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven. I'll chat to you soon.